Hey everyone, Gary Simon of Coursetro. So let me just show you what we're going to be building today in this rather lengthy tutorial slash crash course. So as we can see here, this is on my desktop on one of my monitors, and this is actually a native desktop application. So if I double click on it, by the way, I should have changed the icon to fit what we're making. What happens is this. So this right here is a native desktop app created with the help of what's called Electron. I've covered it before on my tutorial, but I figured I would cover it again. And what it allows you to do is specify a YouTube channel ID. This probably would be your own in case you're interested in really seeing all the time your subscribers. And you can also separate them to include multiple channels right there. This is Brad over here at his channel, and you can keep on adding channels to track if you wish. What's also cool is these will update every X amount of seconds based on whatever you program it to in terms of milliseconds. And this is all pulling this from a YouTube API. And so the API, to have an API key, is free. I'm going to show you exactly how to set that up, and we're going to be using Electron with the help of Angular, and I found a Github repo that has a boilerplate project all set up for us that we're going to be using. So we're not going to be focusing on, what's going behind the scenes. Really, we're going to be focusing on just, what it takes to create this app right here after we get up and running. And so I'll be showing you, how to do this bar right here, where you can, click minimize and get it back up here, and how to close it out, and how to use the API. As you can see, it just updated. You got another subscriber. So what's really cool is this can be really extended. I mean, to include much more functionality. I only had a limited amount of time, a few hours, to work on this, but it will be on the GitHub repo in the description here, so you can go ahead and, if you want, you can contribute. Just fork, make your changes to it. This could really be something a lot of people could use. Who knows? So anyhow, yeah, that is it for today's question. I don't have it right now, so look in the description on here on YouTube for the very first line. I'm always asking a question, and I'm talking too much now. It's extremely late. I'm about to go to sleep, so let's get started. All right, here we are at this Angular Electron page, and the way I found this, honestly, I just went to Angular. I went to Google and typed in Angular Electron, and this came up, and this GitHub repo, and I saw that it is definitely up to date based on these commit times, and we could see that basically. It's a real quick bootstrap and package your project with Angular 6 Plus and Electron. 6, of course, is the current Angular version, and it has SaaS, TypeScript, and hot reloading all together. Exactly what I would want. So to get started, we're just going to follow these quick steps real quickly, and I'm going to open up here. Get this a little bit bigger. I'm using Commander CMDER for Windows. It's a console emulator. I have a video on my channel if you want to search. I have the theme and all that stuff. And so what I'm going to do is just right click, and that will paste in this real quickly. We're going to CD into it. All right, and then we're going to put in npm install, as that was the second step right here. All right, and while that's installing, I'll just keep on going over this page here a little bit. Yeah, there's an issue apparently with Yarn, so just use npm node package manager. You'll need node.js install. I'm going to assume that you already know that stuff if you're watching this type of tutorial. Also, you need to make sure you have the Angular command line interface installed with this command globally. I already do. If you want to be able to, generate services and all that stuff, and use all the other stuff with the CLI, we'll just be using it to generate a single service here momentarily. And then it tells you all the included commands that you can run with their description. So we'll be using a couple of these. All right, so let's go back here to this area. It's still going, and yeah, everything I really didn't come up with any issues in terms of stuff not working as it should. in relation to this repo as I went through. So there we go, finally. All right, so now at this stage, we can, all right, let's see, there's a million things on my mind. I do not have a written version of this tutorial for me to look off of as I'm recording. Most of the time I do that, but now with this new schedule, I'm just gonna be winging it. I don't have enough time to write the tutorial. So let's go ahead and open up a code editor here. Code period will open up Visual Studio Code if you have that installed. I don't wanna upgrade. And here's everything that's going on. So it looks really similar actually to your typical Angular project. There's just some main differences going on. For instance, our main TS file right here, this is actually a lot of Electron stuff, like creating the window. We're going to be adjusting this stuff right here for the new browser window that it creates with size, height. Let's go ahead and actually run the command. Let's go over here to this right here. If we wanted to actually run it, we have several different options here, obviously. npm run start, I believe, is the one that we're going to use, although I don't see it here. Maybe I'm wrong. npm run build. Nope, npm start. Right, and this is for development. That's the one we want to use. So let's go ahead and run that right here. Obviously we've made no adjustments, but so this is just straight up the normal, the very default template that they've created for getting it up and running. And I'm not sure which monitor it's going to show up on. I have 3 total monitors, but you will see a window. It'll look like a native app in a sense when it loads up. Yep, it's on my other monitor. Let me just, and it loads it real large by default. And here it is. So this is the actual, as you can see, it doesn't look like a browser window. This is it looks like a native desktop app with a file, edit, view, window, help, all that stuff. And also, we can see though, it has a developer console because it's, it looks exactly like a Chrome developer console right here. And this is handy for development. And of course, we will turn this off when we're ready, to ship it or whatever, when we're ready to build it at the very end into an actual executable here on Windows. And you can also do it for other operating systems as well. But this being opened up by default is handy because we'll be able to see any errors that show up. And it also help with CSS if you want to try to quickly adjust CSS properties and all that stuff. Okay, so I guess the first thing we'll do is we're just going to start building out the UI. When I prepared this project earlier today, I started off as always in Adobe Experience Design. And I'm going to open this up right here. I'm just going to show you what I created for the UI. All right, so let me hide this. So I just kind of did a fictional desktop with some icons and crap over here. Realistically, I have many more. And over here is really what I wanted it to look like. Obviously small, kind of confined. I just kind of built this out here with the tools here in Adobe Experience Design. And this is the idea that I wanted to have. So we'll start trying to build up this top tool or toolbar and with the HTML and CSS and then get it functioning. All right, so what's great here also is because there is hot reloading, meaning whenever we make a change in our code editor, it will automatically reload it for us. Very handy over here. So the very first thing I'll do is go to Source, App, we'll go to Components and Home. The HTML, that's where all that home title stuff is coming from. Just get let's get rid of, actually, let me refer to my reference monitor. We're going to leave the div class container. We're going to just go ahead and gut the other stuff there. All right, so now you can see if you save it, it's going to need to reflect. It's not going to have that title anymore. All right, let me make this just a little bit larger. All right, so what we're going to do is start creating the HTML to build out all of this. So what we'll do is, I'm going to hit Control B, by the way, to get rid of the sidebar, more screen real estate, and also F11. All right, so we're going to put in a header element, and then the header element is going to have a strong element for the logo, and I'm just calling it YT desk. So we'll put in a span because I want the YT to be red, and then desk will just be white. And then after that, we're going to have a nav element because we have the well, once we convert this into a frameless window, we'll be able to mimic these up here, and so that's going to be a nav element. All right, so we'll use an unordered list. Again, all this is HTML, and you know, Discord, by the way, where's my Discord? This Discord is also based on it's in a wrapper in Electron. So we're going to be doing the same thing up here. I actually kind of just copied the same kind of flow where it says Discord right here. There's a logo, and then there's the you know, the minimize and close buttons. So we're just going to have two of those for minimize and close. So we're going to put in image source /assets /button or btn.-min.svg, and I'm going to make this an ID of min, and also a click element, which is an event binding, a click event binding. We're going to call a function called minimize window. All right, and then I'm going to hit Shift Alt and the down arrow key. We're going to call another function called close window. Of course, these don't exist yet. This one doesn't need an ID, and this is going to be button or btn close. All right, so I'm going to link a GitHub repo that you can clone, and it's going to have these assets for you. I'll try to also remember to include the XD file for the design. Okay, so let's go ahead and save that. And by the way, I'm not sure if this is going to load correctly. The reference to this assets folder. Actually, I think what I'll do, because I do know it works like this in development mode. Coming out two folders or going up. Because I know when you go to build it, this makes it break. When we go to build the executable, it will it'll mention that these files will not show up. I had to convert them into just the same folder essentially for those to work. For development, I know this works, so we'll leave it at that. All right, so let me real quickly get those in the assets folder. So the assets folder is right here in the project, and we're just going to stick those two SVG files right there. So I'm going to go to my reference monitor. I'm going to open up the assets, if I can see this. All right, the assets are right here in this reference right there. And again, this is just coming from the Adobe XD. All I did is export these as SVG files by going to export selected. All right, so now I'm going to open up this and just paste those two in. All right, so now, of course, if we go back, it's going to look all messed up, and that's okay. Let's just stick with the HTML so we can get all the HTML knocked out, though. All right, so that's for the top header part. And then the next thing that we have going is this. This is actually going to be a text, an input text right here where people can type. All right, so this will be outside the header, of course. All right, so we'll put in input type equals text, placeholder equals channel username. We'll have a default one just so that it has something to load by default. So I'm going to put in a default value right here. So the value is going to be my channel ID for my YouTube channel. And then we're going to have a event of key up, enter. So there's not going to be any like clickable submit a button. Just as you type it, you hit the enter key, and there you go. And this is going to call a function called channel. And again, we haven't created any of these functions yet. event target value simply allows us to pass the value of the input element to this function right there. All right. And then we want to list out the channels right here in this section. All right, so to do that, we're going to have a main element. All right, just as the main content. And for now, we're just going to leave it there. I will add an ngIf there momentarily. And just so, well, I think what we'll do is yeah, I'm going to make it dynamic and just from the start, because I was going to put template data so that we can see it while we're doing the CSS, but just to make things a little bit more simpler for myself, I'm going to put all the full code here. So we're going to have an ng container, and that's just an element so I can apply an ng4 real quick. An ng4 will iterate over an array. So we're going to say let channel of channel info.items. All right, so anything in here is going to be repeated based on how many items are returned from the YouTube API. By default, when it loads, because we only have one channel ID mentioned right here, it's only going to have one item that shows up. But if the user decides to add a comma and put in a second or third or fourth channel ID, then this will return multiple times. All right, so the HTML for this, I'm going to use a figure element because it's a channel avatar as shown. Where is it at? Right here, plus a username. So a figure / fig caption would work well for that. So figure, we'll have an image, and we're going to do property binding of source. The source is coming from channel, and this is in reference to right here, let channel of channel info items, and snippet dot thumbnails, and I'll describe this in a second. Dot default dot URL. And so you'll see in a little bit, once we actually get the data coming back from the YouTube API, we'll console log the whole thing, and you'll see in channel info items right here, this is a array of objects, and in the array of objects we have properties called snippet, and then inside of snippet there's also another object called thumbnails, and then there's also another object called default, and then URL. So you'll see how this works out momentarily. All right, and then we're going to have a fig caption, and inside of here we're going to use interpolation, which is very simple stuff. Make sure you watch my beginners Angular tutorials here. There's one for Angular 6 on my channel and my website. Interpolation will simply just display a variable or a value or a property of some sort. So channel.snippet.title, and this right here displays the name of the channel to the right of this the channel image, the avatar or icon, whatever you want to call it. And then outside of the figure section, we're going to have a div class of stats, and we'll have a strong element to represent that big subscriber count. So we'll use interpolation again. Let me hit Control B to get rid of that sidebar. Statistics, this is another property that's returned from the API. Subscriber count, and then we're going to use a pipe called number, because if you don't put this, it's not going to, if you have, if you have more than 3 figure subscribers, what the hell am I doing? Subscribers, then it's not going to put in commas and all that stuff. So this will make sure that it separates them into commas, which is important. All right, so that looks pretty good to me. We're also going to put one final element called as a span, and we're just going to put in subscribers, and that's for that label that shows up right there. All right, and if you didn't put that pipe in, it would just return crap. So we have that built-in pipe number pipe for Angular right there. All right, now if we save this, it's going to error. Actually, it's not going to error. That's pretty. Oh wait, yeah, it is right there. So it can't read the properties of items. It doesn't know what the hell's going on, but that's expected. So let's go ahead, before we get into the API stuff, let's work on the CSS here. So Control B, we're going to go down. Now, this isn't specific to Electron. This is all Angular stuff. There's always a global style sheet for Angular, and we can see where this repo was set up to use SaaS, which is handy. We're going to make just a couple adjustments in this global file right here. We're going to leave this one actually here. I want to use a custom font called Montserrat. So it's available at Google Fonts, google.com/fonts. And this is the code that you want to use right here for that. All right. And then we're going to go ahead and just reference the body itself. And we're going to give it a background color. And it's just a light gray. So it's EB, EB, EB. And then also font family, Montserrat. All right, cool. So now if we save this, not much changes except for the font, which you can't even tell. All right, so now let's go ahead back to our area right here. We're going to go open up the SaaS file for our home component. So for the first thing, we're going to get rid of all this crap. And now it's going to drastically change to that. All right, so let me get it up on my reference monitor here. All right, there's a fair amount of CSS. It's not too bad though. So the container itself is going to be a display, a grid container, which is a new kid on the block when it comes to structuring layouts. And I've covered this in my channel, so just do a search on my channel for grid if you want more of an understanding of what's happening here. So we're going to do a grid template rows. All right, so the rows are the things that are stacked on top of each other. Columns are vertical. We're going to put in 3 of them. And the first one's going to be around 34 pixels, and then auto and auto. And the 34 pixels, this is in relation to this top row right here. I'm just going to say this is going to be 34 pixels high, and then just auto and auto for those remaining 2. All right, now we're using SaaS, so we can nest in these rule sets here. And also coming, I believe, fairly soon is native nesting, so you're not even going to have to use SaaS for nesting stuff. All right, so we're going to reference our header element next, because as we could see right here, this is what's next, is the header. All right, so we're going to go back. All right, so the header, let's see here. We're going to also make that a display grid container as well, simply because we have the logo on the left, and then we also on the right have the little minimize and close buttons. So grid template columns in this case, because we have columns we're working with now, we'll say we'll have that the logo take up 85% of the space, and there's a reason I'm doing that. You'll see in a bit, hopefully. And then auto for the second column where the buttons lie. And then inside of here we have the strong element for the logo, and we're going to put in webkit-app-region. Now this is real specific to Electron, because when we get rid of this part right here, up here, we're going to be making this frameless, which means we're not going to see this little title or this icon, and we're not going to see the file edit window and all this stuff. Typically, we can just use the top title bar to move things around, right? Left click and drag. Well, we're not going to have that. So this part right up here is going to be the part where we drag, and that's what allows you to do that. You actually control that with CSS. All right, we're also going to make the color of the font here for the logo white, which is 3 Fs, and then also the span for the YT part is going to be red. So if we save this, this is what it looks like so far. And you can't drag it yet simply because we haven't done the code necessary to remove this stuff up here. We'll get there though, real soon. All right, and then outside of the strong element will be our nav element for the buttons, and we're going to say justify self right, and this is a display grid property, so we're just going to push everything over to the right. And then inside of here we have the unordered list style type, none. Also margin 0, padding 0, getting all that stuff off of here. Don't worry, it'll come back. We lost our buttons. And then over here we have our list item. So li float left. So we're going to make the buttons float left of each other, not stacked horizontally as they are default in an unordered list. Also, we're going to have a margin left just to push them away from each other, 8 pixels. And inside of our list item element, we do have an image element. Width is going to be 12 pixels for those SVGs, and cursor is going to be pointer, so that you know you can click on them. So let's go back here. There they are. Don't worry, it's not looking good right now. That's expected. And then also our image min, which is the minimize button, we're going to make the padding 10 pixels so you can click it more easily because of how it was structured. All right, let's keep going. Next, we'll have our input. So the input is all the way off down here because we have our container, we have our header, and then we have the input right here. So let's style the input section. All right, input is going to be background color. This is DB. It's just like a darker gray. A border is going to be 0. Padding will be 12 pixels. We're going to put color gray for the text inside of it. The font family is going to be Montserrat. And then outline none. And because sometimes when you focus on it, it gives you that ugly yellow outline that the browser has by default. There that stuff is. All right. And then we're going to reference our main stuff right here. All this stuff. So let's go and do that. So main. We're going to have a display grid. And then a grid template columns. And this is all in reference to this stuff right here, because we have a column here and a column here. All right, so that's simply going to be repeat 2 times auto. You could just put auto, but a repeat is a shorter way of doing that. Also, we're going to have padding of 20 pixels. And then inside of main, we have a figure, which we're going to reset any default figure margin to 0. We have our image inside of it, and this is for the channel icon. So we're going to have a border radius of 50% because the images returned from the YouTube API will be square. This will make them a circle. We're going to float left so that the text floats to the right of it, and then a width of 50 pixels for that channel avatar, and margin right will be 10 pixels to move the username from it. All right, and then after the image, we have the fig caption for the name of the channel, and all I'm doing here is margin top 14 pixels, and I will push it away from the top and center it up with the middle of the right here. Let me just show you. Yeah, by default it's like up here, so that just pushes it over, or pushes it down rather. All right, let's save this. Again, we're not going to have much showing up because we don't have the data yet to work with. We're almost done though with the CSS. After this fig caption, we have stats. So we're gonna have stats right here, and this is a class where right here holds the main stats that we're choosing to show. So that's going to be justify self right, and so that's going to right align the part where it has the that second column for the information. Strong, this is for the subscriber count. Font size, we're just increasing it a good amount basically. Display block as well, and then our span element for our label is going to be color gray. Font size is small, so 0.8, and then float right. That's it for the CSS. I have a feeling like I missed a property possibly, and yes, I did. Right under here, we need to add padding, 8 pixels. And that's going to move the this stuff away from the edge. And then I'm also going to give it a background color. So you'll see when I save in a second. It's going to be 3A, 3A, 3A. So let's save that now. There we go. That's better. So we can see we can't drag it yet. So let's focus on that and also making these minimize and close buttons work. So what we need to do is come all the way down here to hit Control B, by the way, if you were hiding that sidebar, and go to the main TS file. All right. So as mentioned before, this is the section where you can control a couple things about the default Electron stuff, like as it pertains to the X and Y coordinates. This is kind of like where you want the app to load in terms of based on the desktop dimensions. We're not going to adjust this stuff, but we are going to change a couple things here. So first, let's we're going to put in a property called frame and just set it to false. We're also going to change, and then by the way, this is all you have to do to make it frameless. That gets rid of the menu bar and the title bar. And then also I want a default width and height just kind of hard coded in there. So 550 by, this is the width, and then the height will be 300. So it's going to be wider than it is tall. So now if we save this, we have to close this out because it's not going to reload these changes. And so we have to go here, hit Control C, hit Y, hit the up arrow key to get our npm started command going again. Waiting. And here we are. Cool. So let's increase this a little bit. And because we're showing this is kind of screwing up the width by height thing, the inspector over here. But now, as you can see, we can drag this area, and that's because of that CSS property that allows us to drag this. So if we come over here, you can see if you click in this section, you're not going to be able to drag it until we get to that. I think it's like 85%. I probably could have extended that to about 90%. But anyhow, let's get these working right here, the minimize and the close buttons. So let's go ahead and hit Control B, and we're going to come all the way up to, there's a default provider in here called electron.service that's created. So I hit Control B here, and we have to add a couple things. So in order to have the ability to close and minimize the window, we're going to have to add real quickly. Let's see here. All right, so we will have right here after our remote, we have to add in browser window. So we're importing browser window from Electron. All right, and then we're going to create a property window, and it's going to be a browser, an instance of the browser window right here. And then in the constructor, we're going to say this dot window, which is in reference to this property up here, equals, and this follows the same format as the rest. So it's window.require, and we'll say electron dot remote dot get current window. Now, first of all, how did I realize or discover how to do this? Because it wasn't here by default. I had to add it. My goal was to be able to get those, that little X and the minimize buttons to actually close and minimize the app essentially. So all I did was I used Google. So and it took me to a result in one of the issues that was posted in the GitHub repo of this package that we're using, and someone had the same question. And this is exactly what was mentioned. This is how you do it. And this is just one part of it, though, because this right here, this dot window will now show up when we import this Electron service into our home component. So if we now go to our home component file, Control B, what we're going to do is import the Electron service. And that's the file that we were just working with. All right, so this is going to be from providers.electron. .service. All right, it's grayed out because we're not using it yet. And then we're going to put in an instance of it. So private electron service. All right. And then remember, if you remember, if we go to the HTML file right here, we had on a click event, minimize window and close window. So let's create those real quick. So I'm going to put it right here. We'll have close window. And we'll say this dot electron dot window, and that's the thing, that's the property we just created, dot close. Yay, now we have access to that. All right, let's copy this. We want to minimize it as well. So this is minimize window. And guess what? Minimize. Now, of course, if you're using Visual Studio Code, we can see, if we hit the period, we can see all the other stuff that we have access to. A lot of other stuff. All right. So just keep that in mind. All right, so if we save this, we'll see, hopefully, yep, now we can minimize it, and then we can go ahead and close it. Now when you close it, we're going to have to go back to the console though, Control C, and run npm start. All right, while this is getting back up and running, let's go ahead and start focusing on the API stuff. So this is going to require, first, we're going to be using, by the way, this is we're going to be using the YouTube Data API. They have a bunch of different APIs that you can use. By the way, this is showing up, so let's get this over here. All right. And the APIs that we're going to use here are only going to require an API key. Now, there's different APIs for YouTube, the reporting API and the analytics API, and they can require OAuth keys if you actually want to get access to a lot more control over your own YouTube channel. But we're not building that type of app where you can actually manipulate and edit data. We're just reading simple data, so all we're going to need is an API key. So to do that, you have to have a Google account first. I'm already logged in. You have to go to console.developers.google.com, and we want to create an API right here. So I'm going to hit create. All right, give it a project name. I'll just call it YT Desk. All right. Hit create, and we'll wait momentarily. Drinking wine here. Come on, bro. Let's go. Let's get it done. I'm about to fall asleep. All right. By the way, this was the Google Fonts area right here that I got that import command going from. All right, I think it's done. Yeah. All right, so now for this, let me click on this real quickly here. This is the one I was using by default. And where I want to go to is with that one selected. Yeah, I have we need to add the YouTube Data API. So for the one we just selected, we're going to go enable APIs and services, and we're going to say data. And you're going to see the YouTube Data API version 3, and we're going to enable it. Oh, here we go again. All right, so, okay, good, it's ready. Now we want to go to credentials. All right, so it says to view all credentials or create new credentials, visit this. And we're going to create simply an API key. And this is where, you know, we're going to want to save this right here. I'm making my screen a little bit bigger. I'm going to have to remember to delete this key because you guys will probably abuse the hell out of it. We'll just we're just going to copy this part right here and save it in a text file somewhere, just momentarily, like that. All right. So this channels list page over here, you just remember this URL or go to it. You can see that for the usage of this API, and by the way, there's a lot of different things you can do. We're only using this one thing right here. You can search, or you can construct the API request based on a channel ID. Every YouTube channel has an ID, or by a YouTube username, or a list from my channel. You can't use that one unless you're going to use the OAuth stuff. We're not doing that. And so the one we're going to use is by the channel ID. That's how we're going to find the channel. All right. So and there's also stuff here that's going to show you how to do it. There's also this little API Explorer sort of thing. We're going to be requesting snippet content details and statistics. And there's an example API right here, or a YouTube channel. And if we hit execute, it's going to give you a response. Daily limit exceeded. I think this is probably based on some other situation happening here with whatever they have going on for their API key. Hopefully it's not using mine. Anyhow, so one thing I saved here from earlier is the actual request. This is one of my other API keys, and this is going to be the URL that we actually use to request the data from YouTube, and you'll see how that works momentarily. There we go. This is my channel ID for design course. You can see it returns all of this information here. So remember when we were doing the HTML portion, I was talking about going into snippet, the thumbnails, the default, and the URL. That's where all of that stuff came from. And it also gives you access to a fair amount of information just for being a read-only public sort of API sort of description for YouTube channels. So you simply put in the ID, and there you go. So you can notice up here we can see it says ID equals the right here the channel ID. That's where it goes. You can also put for username, and you can put a channel username like design course, and it'll do the same thing. So that's just for your own reference. So we're just going to use the ID, and the IDs are comma separated, so you can put in multiple. That's what will allow our very simple app to do. Okay, so let's get started with the API stuff. So what we're going to do is go back into the console, and I'm going to get a new console window open here. So new console, so we can leave this stuff running. What the hell? What are you doing? New console, hit start. I have no clue why it's doing that. It's never done that before. And now it's freezing. Am I still recording? Come on, please, God. What are you doing? There we go. All right. I don't know what that was. CD, what were we called? Angular Electron. Let me make sure I get this out here. I have 11. Yes, Angular hyphen Electron. And we're going to use the Angular CLI to generate a new service. So ng, G for generate, S for service, and you could put in generate service if you want, whatever. And we're going to name it data, and that's going to be for the HTTP stuff. And of course, when you do that, you have to go to the app module TS file, And again, if this is all like if you've never touched this before, you're going to be lost like hell. So make sure you watch the free Angular 6 course that I have. And now we have to go and import our data service. Oops. This light is making me really hot. There's a light up there, and it's not the nice, cool LED type. I have to get new lights soon. This is going to be from data service. And then we simply have to add it as a provider in the providers array. So data service. Now we can use it in our app component. Wait, no, our home component. Sorry about that. And so that is going to be import data service from, and we're going to step 2 folders out into data service. And then we'll put private data service. All right, so there's nothing we can do with it yet because we haven't touched the service file, and it's all the way down here, right there. All right, so our data service file, we're going to import the HTTP client because we want to make a call to the YouTube API. So we have to put Angular common HTTP. And then we're also going to import some RxJS operators. And these really, their purpose is going to be allow us to first create a interval that will pull from or request this API endpoint every X amount of time because we want to make this real time, as real time as possible. And so to get the updated number every X seconds or minutes, this is what it'll allow us to do. So we're going to import switch map, and start with. And start with will, well, I'll describe that in a second here once we get to it. RxJS operators. And I do have an RxJS course for beginners as well, so check that out on my site and my channel. And we're also going to import interval here from RxJS. All right. And so now we have our constructor, and we're going to pass in an instance of the HTTP client. All right. And then we're going to call our function. We're only going to have one, get stats. And we're going to pass in the name, or really it's going to be the ID of the channel. And we're going to return an interval every, now I think just to, for the purposes of this tutorial, sorry, we're going to make it 5 seconds, so 5,000 milliseconds. Really, I would probably just make it only 1 minute because I'm not sitting here watching this thing every 5 seconds. So it'll also, not make so many requests also. So we're going to return, and then we're going to pipe. We're going to use the pipe method here to put in start with 0. Now this means if I didn't include this start with right here, and I included everything after this, it would make us wait 5 seconds or whatever this is before it will make that first request. So when you load the app up or you put in a new channel ID and hit enter in that text field in the UI, you're going to have to wait this amount of time before it makes the first request. That's stupid. Start with, we'll just say 0. You start with immediately 0. It's named quite well. All right, so switch map. All right, and here, this is where we do the this.http.get. And we put in that URL I was just showing you, except we make a small change to make it dynamic. So what we'll do is copy this, except I'm going to change the key because the API key, this is going to be the key that you want to use. All right, so we're going to paste that in. So Control B here. This is kind of long. And where is that API key that I had? It's in here somewhere. There we go. That's it. That's the one. So I'm going to copy that key and just paste it right there. All right. And then when we get to ID, we take this one that's hard-coded, and we simply pass in the name, which is coming, from the parameter, or for the parameter's name right there. We're not done yet, though. All right, after that, we're going to put in a comma, and we put in one more, and this right here is our map operator. We map the results to simply the result. This is all standard Angular HTTP stuff, just like that. So let's save that. Nothing's going to work yet. And we're going to go back to our home component here. All right, and on ng on init, and this is a lifecycle hook. This is when it loads. It basically means when the app loads. We're going to call a method called this.channel. We're going to create this in a second. And I'm just going to pass in a default channel ID. If you wanted to use this for your own YouTube channel, you could put your YouTube channel ID right here. Ideally, if this was a real app that was developed and I had more time to work in all this crazy stuff, it would load it from memory, like whatever you chose last time you ran it. I don't have enough time, unfortunately, with this new schedule I have going on here. I have to pump content out like crazy. All right, so we're going to create that method right here. So channel, and it's going to take a name, which is what this is coming from. And this is, we're going to say, first we'll put this.channel subscription. And by the way, we're going to have to create that. So we have two properties up here we're going to create first. The channel info, which is what we pass to the template that contains all of the channel's info. And then also a subscription for the channels, because we're going to make sure that we can unsubscribe to these subscriptions when a person specifies a brand new, coming up here real quick, when they specify a new channel in that input text field. So import subscription from RxJS. All right, so we have channel subscription and channel info. So now, let's go back here. What we're going to do is channel subscription equals this.data. This is from our data service. And then we see our getStats method we created. And we're going to pass in the name. And that's coming from this parameter right here. And then we're going to subscribe to it. And we're going to say res, or the result, to, and we say this.channel info equals the result, whatever comes from the API. All right, so this is what we use in the template. Let me just show you real quickly before I go further. In our HTML template, we have let channel of channel info dot items. Now, again, that's the stuff that's being returned from right here. So we could see there's an items array. That's the only thing we want. I don't care about this stuff. We just want the items array, and it's an array of objects right here. All right. Let's also, just so we could see it in the console, we can console log the result. And also, one thing that's real important, the reason we created this subscription up here, channel subscription, is you need to unsubscribe to the subscription. Otherwise, you're going to have multiple subscriptions occurring every time somebody specifies a new channel ID in that input text field. So what we'll say, and we're going to check if this is the first time it was, if it exists already. So this.channel subscription, if that exists, then simply this.channel subscription dot unsubscribe. All right, so that looks good to me. Let's go ahead and save that. Oh, look, there it is, guys. I know we just did a lot, but yeah. So here's this error right here is from before when we didn't have the code yet. But But as you can see, every 5 seconds, it is, in the 5 seconds, again, it's coming from the service, our data service, right here. All right. We'll see that it is console logging. And if I get a new subscriber in one of these times, you'll see that this will go from 220,000 subscribers, 505 to 506, and you'll see that that is how it works. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm that quite popular to where I could sit here and you'll see it real soon, the number change. So let's see here. What else do we have? Let me demonstrate real quick adding like a second ID here. You could just, they're comma separated, and this comes from the API docs. So if I put a comma here, and remember this is 505, somebody might subscribe. I know it's kind of late though, it's a little bit slow time. If I come here, I have some other channel IDs I've put in here. Wait, that's mine right there. Here's another one. All right, so that's Brad Traversy's media site. I'll put another one. All right, this is my friend. He has 322,000 subscribers. And if I look at any of these console logs right here, and we'll see we have items 3. And that's what we're targeting, really. So here's each of the 3 objects containing the information that's pertinent to that channel. So as you can see, Brad just got another subscriber here. It was 690. And that is it for, you know, the bulk of this, really. Obviously, extremely simple stuff that we have going on here. But let me, we're not done yet, though. We're going to set this up so that we can also get it built out as an executable and also get rid of this. So let's do that. So we're going to go to main. And we're going to comment out this right here. Open DevTools. So again, if you make changes to this main TS file, you have to, it's not going to hot reload it. So just keep that in mind real quick. And what we'll do is just to make sure that works, I will go ahead and, well, let's first just exit out of there. Where am I at? Which one? Right here. npm start. So now when this reloads, it should show, or it should have that part absent with the developer tools. And while that's loading, let's go back here. And we have to determine which one we really want to build or run in order to build it on which operating system we want. The one we're going to run is npm run Electron Windows. By the way, here it is. We can see it's no longer there. Obviously, you don't want people seeing that. By the way, I did gain a subscriber since then. All right. So let's run this right here. npm run Electron Windows, and this will, on a Windows OS, build the application to create an actual executable file. This takes time, though. It takes a little bit. It's a little bit more lengthy. So let's close that out. And npm run Electron Windows. Oh, wait, I know one thing that's going to break if I don't do this. So if I go back to that right here, we need to change these. Any assets that are linked need to change to this location right here. So now we can go back. If I can get over here, there we go, and run that command. All right, so when you run this, nothing happens. It doesn't load it up, but what it does do is it creates an executable here in the project. So if we look over here, we'll see we have an app builds and we have an Electron file. I'm going to reveal this in the Explorer, and this is a normal app now. You can save this to your desktop or whatever, And if we double click on it with any luck, please God work. It's showing on the other monitor. There we go. Sweet. Now, of course, I should mention, if this is a serious app right here, this specifying the ID like this with these ugly IDs, comma separated, that's not ideal. In an ideal world where I'd have more time to work on this, we would probably have a drop down right here where you can specify either to search for the username of a channel versus an ID. And by the way, there is a little bit of a not a hack, but sometimes depending on the channel, for instance, if I go to youtube.com design course, that's my username and it will work. Some channels don't have these. I don't believe they have these vanity URLs, and sometimes they will just show up with the actual channel, like the portrait art, for example. You can see that user ID is how you get to that channel. Sometimes, like, what would my channel ID be? We know what the from username is, but you don't know what that is. And there's a YouTube channel ID finder or something like that. Let me find it, because I was looking for this. There is a right here, found it. So if you put in a channel ID's YouTube channel's username, you'll be able to find the ID right here. All right, that's just for your own reference. It's something I kind of struggled with for a second. But yeah, going back to what I was saying, the ideal way to set this up would be so that you choose how you want to find a channel, and then with a drop down, and then to the right will be, you know, this text field right here where a person specifies a username or a channel ID. And then when they hit enter, it would, instead of having to separate it by comma, which I don't think you can separate, or you can search for multiple channels by username. I think that's only by ID. But either way, when you hit enter, it would add it to an array of sorts. That's where it's storing it on local storage somehow. And by the way, you can search for all that stuff, like Electron, you know, storing data and all that stuff on your own time. And it would store in an array, and then that way you're not sitting there having to comma separate them. And it would simply push to an array, and then when you hover over this, it would be cool to have kind of like an X somewhere to where you can just delete ones you don't want to add. That would be the ideal setup, or at least a lot better than this. But hopefully you were able to take away at least something from this tutorial. And what's really cool, what I hope, I'm going to have the GitHub repo for this. So if you wanted to contribute to the project, and if you don't know how to do that, go to Google or YouTube and type how to contribute to a GitHub project. You'll find a bunch of videos. You just go to the repo, you fork it, you make your changes if you want to make, you know, enhancements to this app, and then create a pull request, and I'll add it. And there we go. All right, so hopefully you found that useful. Make sure you answer today's question and subscribe here. See you guys soon.